Hi everyone.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome to episode number 14.
Yeah, wow, it's 14 already.
I know, we got to do one more before the year's up.
There it is.
A nice 15 for 2010.
There
Great.
it goes.
Welcome everyone, and we're going to answer your questions as usual. There are a wonderful slate of questions, and as we started in episode number 13, we're going to do our whoosh, Ninja Chuck.
There it is.
Just fun thing. And we're going to award somebody the Analysis Ninja Question Award, and you get a signed copy of Web Analytics 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah? Very cool. Let's get going. The first question for you, Nick. Are there any plans to allow Google Analytics goals to use dynamic variables like AdWords conversions rather than static variables to make these goals more accurate for measuring ROAS for all types of online marketing campaigns? And the question comes from Tony G in New Plymouth, New Zealand.
Yeah, no, that's
a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So
Ninja, possible ninja?
potentially, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So what the question is that in AdWords you can put a variable amount of value and you associate that with a goal.
Right.
And in Google Analytics you can only have a static value. You can only say a goal is 5, and anytime somebody converts, it's always 5.
Oh, I see.
So with Google Analytics, it's definitely a feature request. One of the things people have used is our e-commerce, because you can actually pass a value, the revenue, and then you can have like a variable amount of a number that you could pass to us. So something you could look at today is potentially using the e-commerce to track a variable, or again, this is a great feature request that we'll pass on.
But if you look into the e-commerce tracking tag, which is
Sure.
separate from the standard JavaScript tag for Google Analytics, you might be able to do this if your system supports
Yep,
it. Great,
definitely.
great. Another one for you, Nick, from Sushant in New York. And Sushant asks, the async execution of the new GATC adds uncertainty in tracking outbound links, example to Twitter, using on-click event handler. When somebody clicks the link and leaves the website, how do we make sure data will be passed to Google Analytics in an async setup? So I think the question is, if the async, which is substantially faster than any other sort of way of capturing data,
Right.
if that is slow or doesn't execute properly, what can we do to increase likelihood of tracking outbound clicks?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with async, so we'll get a little technical here, but Sushant,
Sure.
this should make a little bit of sense. We can link out to some documentation. So with async, we have underscore GAQ, and then that's the kind of the object that transforms when GA.js loads from a normal array to the actual tracking object. Underneath that, there's the underscore GAT, and that was the original tracking object that we had before. And that still actually exists. The GAQ is kind of a wrapper for this GAT object. So one of the options you have is to check if the GAT object exists. If it does exist, that means that the tracking code is loaded. So once you as a developer can determine whether the tracking code is loaded or not, then you have a couple options. You could either then retry, you can have the user wait and completely break the link and make sure the tracking code does load for them to get tracked.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I mean, it's a usability kind of thing, that trade-off. The other one is to just allow them to go and continue using the link even though the tracking code hasn't loaded. So as a developer, you do have a couple options, but the most important is being able to take those options is about determining whether the GAT object has loaded if you use the async method.
Great. And async by itself is extremely fast. I mean, compared to the old Google Analytics code, which is works very similar way to other web analytics tools like Omniture, WebTrends, Core Metrics, etc. Async is already much faster, so there is already an increased likelihood that by using async, you're collecting ever more data regardless of how fast the people on your site are clicking away. Because remember, it sits in the head and not at the end of the body, as do normal tags.
Great. So the next question here is for you, Avinash.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from Lauren in New York, New York. Our bloggers, podcasters, journalists, admins, etc. routinely keep a website page open during the day. Most of us reload that page in our browsers every half hour. Do GA visits count as 48 visits per day, 24 visits per day, or 1 visit per day? There's a big difference between them. So how does it work, Avinash?
I know. So I wonder what they're doing with the page open for the whole day. Okay, Lauren. So as you know, with every web analytics tools, the session gets terminated after 29 minutes of inactivity. So that's the standard rule. You can modify that if you want, but that's the standard rule. And in this scenario that you've described, if your journalists and admins are not sleeping, eating, breathing, or any other thing, and for 24 hours they sit, and every half an hour they reload the page on the website, indeed that is being recorded as 48 visits, just 24 times 2 essentially. If they do eat, breathe, sleep, and live, then and work for 12 hours, then that would be 24 visits. But it's important to realize, Lauren, that while it is 48 visits, it's only one unique visitor. It's very important to realize. So we have two metrics to look at: unique visitors and the number of visits. So remember that. The other interesting thing is, if you want to filter out these egregious number of visits and you know this behavior is happening, go to any report we have in Google Analytics, keyword report, referring URL, page report. At the bottom, there is a link called advanced filter, bottom of the table. You can go in there, say, and only show me visits greater than X number in a day or something. And boom, that will just show you whatever the right number is. But there are other ways in which you can filter out people who come to who are in your company who are executing this behavior by using IP addresses to filter out. And I know Nick has a very clever solution as well that requires a little more technical implementation, but also is a great way to filter out these egregious visits by people inside your company.
Right, so if you use a custom variable at the visitor level, when somebody logs in or comes to your company, you can identify them as a visitor, who's internal to your company, and then use an advanced segment to just not include those visitors
In your reports.
Right, in all your reports. So then across all your reports, you can get the accurate data.
Correct. So IP address filtering out, custom variables are two ways to just ignore that data or put it away in a different bucket, and then using advanced table filter is another way. But remember, many visits, but only one unique visitor. Yes.
Great question. So next question here is for you. This is from Josh Bratton in Minnesota. Hi, Nick and Avinash. Long-time watcher, first-time submitter. Great. Thanks for submitting your question.
Josh has a great blog on web analytics.
I'd like to get the benefit of event tracking on all my links, but don't want to manually tag each one.
Right.
Is there an easy way to do this through the async GA tag?
Yeah, so Josh, very good question. There are many JavaScript techniques that are available that will rewrite the links and do etc. magic for you on your behalf. But one of the best ways is to use some scalable solutions being built out by various Google Analytics authorized consultants. And one of them is our good friend Caleb Whitmore, and he runs Analytic Pros. And Caleb offers a service called the APE, Analytics Pros Engine, and amongst the many things that are automatically done for you, event tracking and all other kinds of beautiful things, is a way to track all your links and outbound clicks that you would like to track using event tracking or page view tracking goals. Magical amounts of things. All you do is, in addition to the JavaScript code you have on your page, there is an extra line of code that you add that calls the APE, and boom, everything works. If you want to see how this looks, just do a view source on my blog on any page, and I have clearly commented out the APE, which I am using myself to track outbound link, create events, and track mail to form submissions and things like that. So we'll link at the end of this blog post to Caleb's website, and you can go learn more information. But seek solutions like that to do better tag management, and they allow you to do these other wonderful things as well without having to necessarily go and retag manual. And,
you don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
Good question.
Here's one for you, Nick, all the way from Hamburg in Germany, from Mario.
Oh, wow.
And he says, hi, Avinash and Nick. I've combined questionnaire data with web analytics data by passing a unique participant ID to campaign parameters, segmented then data by gender and interest. Is there another free slot, I suppose in campaign parameters or campaign variables, without overwriting campaign information?
That's a great question. So when I think of campaign information, again, I don't know
Is
exactly
it
how
the
you're
UTM?
doing. I think what he's saying is through the UTM parameters.
I see. He wants to pass even more than the 3 that we have.
Or 5, yeah.
Oh, 5, sorry, 5, yeah.
Without overriding the normal campaign information.
I see.
So what I would recommend doing is you can pass other data through the query parameters and then use custom variables. And now campaign is session data, so I assume you want session level custom variables. And then just read it, set the custom variable, then track your page, and then you should be able to segment all of that stuff within Google Analytics.
Right. So learn a little bit more about custom variables. We'll link to one of our helpful blog posts on using, but that's actually a very clever idea. But since Mario is in Germany, I also want to caution that it's very important that you review what the local laws in your jurisdiction are about capturing these kinds of data connected to unique visitors. You mentioned, for example, gender, And interest, I don't know what you mean by interest. But gender in some countries is considered to be PII data, personally identifiable information. So when you do these kinds of things, please review the Google Analytics TOS, as well as the laws of your local jurisdiction to ensure that you're in compliance with the laws locally and not using Google Analytics or any other tool to capture data that you are prohibited from capturing. So just be a bit careful about that,
great point.
Mario.
Well, here's a question for you, Avinash, from Paul in Poland. I've recently set up a second GA profile for my website, and I'm wondering, is there any way to export data from the old profile and import into the new one? I found export options, but I can't find import functionality. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, so there is no way for you to do this. The wonderful thing is that with every passing day, the old data becomes less useful. So in a few months, it will be completely useless. So, but on a serious note, if you would like to do this, Nick will give you 3 alphabets that are very important. API. Use the API to pull the data out from the old profile, pull the data out of the new one, and for the time duration where your historical data is still relevant, you're able to present it all together using Excel or some other functionality. That would work very well.
Yeah, that's definitely it.
There you go. Here's a question for you, Nick. It's from Ahsan Rahmatullah in Arkinton, UK. And he asks, hello, Nick and Avinash. I'm currently working on a website which has 3 subdomains, and I've created 3 different accounts for each subdomain. However, it is not possible to view all these accounts together and generate a better report. Right,
that's a good problem. It's a challenge where currently across accounts, there's no roll-up view within Google Analytics. And again, the solution is because we give you the API to access all your data out, there is a way that you can create your own custom dashboards across accounts. So we definitely recommend, if you could use the API to pull the data and create your own dashboards. And there's also partners who would be willing to help you set that up if it's really valuable too.
Exactly. For this one, we're going to link out to our Google Analytics API app gallery, because in the app gallery, there are several solutions available that would allow you to do this in an Excel environment, in a data warehouse environment. You should be able to do that. Yeah. So let's link out to that, because there's some really good stuff there.
Great.
The next question is from Keto, and it says, I love your TV show. I'm tracking a blog with Google Analytics, but it changes so fast. I have problems interpreting in-page analytics to see different versions of the site. So in this case, what's happening is we have a new feature called in-page analytics. It's a nice feature. But what it does is it displays the clicks on top of the web page that you currently have on your website. But if you have a different page yesterday, and you have looking at the report today, and you have a new page today, of course, it would have a trouble showing you all the data because the links disappeared, images, etc. So at the moment, within Google Analytics, there isn't a way for you to essentially archive all your web pages and then archive the data on top of those and be available. So that's actually currently not possible with Google Analytics. But there are other solutions available in the marketplace that you could possibly think about in this scenario. One of the ones I use is called Crazy Egg. It's a paid solution. It's not a free solution. But it's a wonderful solution, and I believe you can set up things in a way that it will archive the page for you. So check that out if you're interested. But at the moment, it's a good feature request for us to have. Here's a question for you from our good friend Peter from Eindhoven, Netherlands.
All right.
And the question is, when getting AdWords data through the Geo API, the cost data is incorrect for the last 24 hours. I don't think incorrect is the precise word. It's a bit lagging. Is there any way to get this data faster when using the Geo API instead of the AdWords API? Greetings, Peter.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so not all the data is processed at the same time in Google Analytics.
I see.
The AdWords stuff comes in at a little bit later time, and that's why the time that it refreshes is a little bit different than some of the other metrics in analytics. Typically, we tell people wait at least 24 hours before all the data kind of settles down. And again, you could just, if you use the date range for a little bit behind,
just one day,
then the numbers will align a lot better.
Exactly. And I think that the team is always trying to get this data faster into the system and getting processed faster. We get data that's sometimes as stale as only 15 minutes. So hopefully over time also it will mitigate this issue.
Absolutely. Great question. So here's a question for you, Avinash. This is from AJ in Utah. Hey, N and A. I know this doesn't qualify as a ninja question. If we're the ninjas, what are you two? It's a good question.
Good question.
But I'm curious about whether or not there are plans in the works to integrate Google Voice into Google Analytics. I'd love to see a native call tracking report.
Yeah, so AJ, good question, and we'll take this back to the Google Analytics team. And as you know, in this TV show, we can't comment on upcoming features, etc. But I did want to state that just 2 days ago, Google has announced native call tracking ability in Google Adwords. So increasingly, if you have Google Adwords accounts and you are doing paid search advertising, you can tell Google to add a number on your behalf and track or give you all kinds of tracking, not just for the clicks through Google Analytics, but also call tracking to the phone numbers that show up in the ads. So there's one example where call tracking is already available at Google for the paid search advertisers. Do check that out. It's a feature that's just 2 days old. And hopefully we'll see this in many places over time, if it makes sense. One for you, Nick, all the way from India.
Wow.
This is a good, tricky question from JD. And what JD, I'll paraphrase it. What JD is essentially asking is that he's using the e-commerce tag to track the transactions on the sites. It's an e-commerce website, e-commerce track. But additionally, he's also tracking that exact same e-commerce page using goals. And sometimes the data, the number of transactions and the number of goals might be off a little bit. And JD is asking what the reasons might be there.
That's a great question. So when you do goals, you're really doing page tracking. And that's one type of tracking that we offer. And then when you're doing the e-commerce stuff, you're actually doing these transactions and items tracking. And it's a little bit different. So the code is a little bit different. They go in different parts of the page. And the way the data comes into the e-commerce is you have to read some of the variables and set it. So it could be that the way that it's set up, because it's set up, they're different calls, something might be affecting the way the e-commerce. And in some cases, the data might not be sent together. So it really depends on the configuration and how it is. And there could be some slight variances between them.
Yeah. But the key point I think that I took away from Nick's comment is that with goals, you're tracking the fact that the page was viewed. With the e-commerce tracking, you're tracking the fact that the button was pressed. Let's say submit order, right? And those are, if you think about it, are two different things. So there can be a slight difference between those. But we have some GACs in India, I believe, now. Yeah. So please go to www.bit.ly/GAC, and you could hire a GAC to look into this a little bit more.
Yeah, you might want to have them review just your implementation to make sure that you're properly configuring it.
Makes sense. Here's one for you, Nick, from Darren in Southern California.
Okay.
And Darren asks, can you please explain the pros and cons of different methods of tracking clicks to different links on the same page? I've considered campaigns, events, and simply adding query parameters, but which one is most effective? And so very quickly, though, this is in context of our in-page analytics feature, where on the home page of my site, in 2 or 3 different places, I could have links that go to the same destination.
Right.
And in in-page analytics, it would look like the same click,
right,
even if they're in 3 different places. So what's your advice, Nick, in terms of using campaigns, events, or adding query parameters to track this effectively?
It's a good question. So right off the bat, campaign tracking should only be used when you're talking about the context in which somebody came into your site. So it should only be used for tracking referrals back into your site.
I see.
Or the page that loaded an iframe or something like that. Don't use them for tracking interactions within a site. Events could be a good way within the reports to actually differentiate the two. You and your code actually mark them as different. The problem is that it won't work with the in-page analytics.
Right.
I think a really good solution is really maybe adding different query parameters to the same link. One of the feedback that we always hear when we say changing URLs is that SEO might have some impact. But there's actually a canonical tag that you can add on your page that says, regardless of all the different types of links, this is the actual link that it's trying to represent.
Correct.
And the search engines will respect that and won't give you, it would treat them as the same link. So I think we highly recommend using the canonical tag and actually differentiating the links on your same page.
Correct. So in this case, I was using the LID, just the name of the parameter, just link ID parameter, and then it would say, LID equal header, in case the link was in header,
right,
LID equal footer, and maybe LID equal main body, right? And in that case, I have 3 different query parameters.
Sure.
But using your recommendation of canonical tags, if Google or Bing came calling, they would consider them all as the one link without the query parameter.
The one thing to consider too is if you add query parameters to a URL, you just want to make sure that the page that you go to, if you have Google Analytics, it'll track it as a query parameter, and it might distort some of your actual page tracking metrics. So you would use a profile filter to filter out that extra parameter for those different pages.
Yes, this is a great question and worthy of a Ninja Award, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to it, but great question. The next question is a feature request from Miss Burns in New York. It would be helpful to give other users access to my advanced segments and custom reports. But it's actually not a feature request. You should be able to do this today. When you go into custom reports or advanced segments, and you see them listed, on the right-hand side, you will see a link called Edit, and right next to it is a link called Share. So Ms. Burns, what you want to do is click on the link called Share, and it will give you a URL, essentially, that you can just send to the person. So I can just send it to Nick, email it to him, and when Nick opens it within his browser, if he's logged into his GA account, it will show him that segment. So both custom reports and advanced segments can be shared today. Look for the share link and share away. The more, the merrier when it comes to sharing, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Nick, here's a question from Julio in Paris. And Julio says, I have linked my Google AdWords and Analytics account. This is great, but I have a major problem because of the 100 campaigns max limitation. I have to create many different Google AdWords accounts. How do I link them, all of them, into Google Analytics? I think you can only do one normally on the site.
Yeah, by default, you can only do one. But if you talk to your account manager for your AdWords, they can help you set it up so you can link multiple AdWords accounts to one analytics account.
So 1-800, call my AdWords manager.
There you go.
That's the number to use. Here's another one for you, Nick. A little tricky one. I'm going to try and read it. It's from the Cake Scraps in upstate New York. Cake Scraps.
The Cake Scraps.
I need to use manual tags for my CPC campaigns in AdWords and use UTM equal parentheses query string to populate the keyword in Google Analytics. I see some instances of medium equal CPC keyword equal term 1, but I am seeing many more where keyword equal parentheses query string. Any idea why?
It's a great question. Yeah, so the UTM term parameter maps to our keyword in our report. So what it looks like you're using is dynamic insertion in AdWords. We recommend not using that. Instead, using our auto tagging feature, which instead will add a little ID to the end of all the URLs that point back to your site, which we can then look up and do the integration with AdWords. So use auto tagging versus the manual tagging.
That should solve the problem. Okay, great.
So here's a question for you, Avinash, from Joan in Barcelona. Many of my clients are small businesses, and some of them do not have a lot of visits. The data cannot be significant. How many monthly visits are necessary or recommended in order to make a decision?
So John, this is a very complicated sort of question. There isn't an easy answer. Let me segregate our decisions that we'll make on web analytics data into two different pieces. One is that a lot of data that we will analyze in web analytics tools is just directionally, it has only to be directionally accurate. So for example, how many people are coming on each keyword? How many people, what pages are most popular? Things like that. So in that case, let's say in a month you only get 1,000 visits. That data is still very useful in understanding keywords and campaigns and pages and et cetera, et cetera. And then you can start making decisions even if you have small data. Now, don't go ahead and just change and burn your entire site and rebuild it based on that data, but you can make directionally concrete decisions based on that. Second part is more important in this context, which is, let's say you want to figure out if campaign E worked better, campaign Avinash worked better or campaign Nick worked better. And you did these two campaigns. Email, social media, doesn't really matter, right? It's paid search. And what you want to know is you're going to go look at conversions. And in that case, statistical significance is indeed important because it could be that campaign Nick is converting at 10%, but campaign Avinash is converting only at 1%. This is not a good example.
Where are you going with this?
But it is actually, you just based on the 1% and the 10%, it would be really hard for you to know and say for sure that campaign Nick is better. Because the sample size of conversions might be very small. In that case, what you want to use is a statistical significance computation calculator. You just punch in those number of visits, conversions, boom, it will tell you if the data is statistically significant or not. So for those kinds of decisions, use statistical significance as a governing factor. And at the end of this blog post, we'll link to a blog post I had written on statistical significance. And that blog post contains a spreadsheet that you can download and use it to compute this thing. So we'll link out to it and use that spreadsheet.
Great.
Here's a good question from Kroder in Cologne, Germany. Oh, I got a very international audience.
Yeah.
I love this. How can we track, it's a tough question from Germany though. How can we track conversion with a shopping cart in WordPress and using PayPal as a payment system? Sending the user to that site and making a purchase there and not being able to place analytics code on the thank you page. So this is a good question. Again, third-party shopping carts,
Right.
PayPal. What do we do here, Nick?
It's a challenge. I think what you're able to do with PayPal is when somebody actually purchases, you're able to send them back to a page back to your site so that they don't just stay on PayPal. And you have to track the conversion when you return them back to your site. So what we'll do is we'll link to an article that describes. It's a little bit complicated. We'll link to an article that some people have written on that explains how you can actually do tracking with PayPal.
Yes, so we'll do that. And some of the third-party shopping carts, actually, you should check with the provider of your shopping carts, because some shopping carts like Miva, I think, and others have integrated Google Analytics into their system. So, so if you use third-party shopping carts, check with them. Sometimes they might have the integration built in for you already.
Definitely.
Here's one for you from Bozeman, Montana, big country. And what he's asking is, how reliable are city metrics data listed in both generic and custom reports? We get hits in our range science bibliographic database from Brooklyn to Dhaka to Brno, Czech Republic. Are the folks in the city actually accessing our database? So
this is a great question.
Great question, yes, Nick.
This is what we call like the known unknowns. We know people are coming, but we don't know where they're coming from. So what happens is when somebody gets tracked with Google Analytics, the data gets sent, and it gets sent over HTTP, which is based on IP addresses. And so we have a record of the IP address in our logs, which we then map to whoever owns the IP address. So in this case, these IP address, the tracking is coming from IP addresses registered in these regions. So definitely people are coming from those different places.
Exactly.
I think it really kind of opens up your eyes that we know, like, there are people all over the world accessing your site, and having a tool like Google Analytics really helps you start to identify like all these things that you didn't really know that were happening. You kind of knew, but you didn't know exactly what was going on.
Yeah, and the IPCT mappings are getting more and more accurate with every passing day. Even a few years ago, it was like 90% accurate. It's much, 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 much higher now. Right. There are some countries, special countries, where the IP to city database mapping is not accurate, but that country is not the United States or Europe or Asia. I mean, those are pretty well mapped. So, so that's good.
Great question. Another question for you. This is from Darren in Southern California.
Oh, again, Darren.
We had another one. Yeah.
I know.
Hi, Nick and Avinash. We have a support knowledge base and are interested to track effectiveness of articles rather than customers viewing multiple pages. What are metrics you would recommend to achieve this in addition to site search metrics?
Great question from Darren. And so there are two things to think about, Darren. One is that there are a number of things that you can measure on a tech support website that allows you to understand the effectiveness of your knowledge base and the articles and if they answered questions or not. And I have a blog post on this from a couple of years ago, and we'll add a link to that one. So you have that. But one important thing I wanted to share is that, especially on these kinds of websites, in addition to Google Analytics, you do want to use other ways to collect data, whether the customer was able to complete the task and if their question was answered. I'm using one such solution on my blog right now. It's called Kiss Insights. And well, if the person has stayed on the page for more than 30 seconds, at the bottom left of my blog, you can try this if you go there. If you stay for more than 30 seconds, a little pop-up comes up, very subtle at the bottom right-hand side. And it says, were you able to complete the task for which you came to the website? And you can choose 2 radio buttons. Yes. What were you looking for? And then you can tell me that. And then no. And then what did you not find? And you can give me the answer. So by using this qualitative analysis, you are able to actually collect really great information to complement the data from Google Analytics and understand that. If you want to look at the data I have collected with such a survey on my knowledge base site, you can go to www.bit.ly/WAKISS. So if you follow the URL, you'll be able to see my results from the actual survey, and perhaps that'll give you a real clue about what you could do. But also check out the blog post. So that's all we have. And with that, I want to thank a few people who gave us great feature requests. Egveni from Israel, we got a great feature request from you. Thank you. Peter from the Netherlands, great feature request as well. Martin from Sydney, Australia, about the email features. Thank you. Great feature request. We answered this one already. That's it. Those were the feature requests we got. And the ninja of the episode that we're going to award is to Darren. Darren had two great questions. The question to you about multiple links and tracking with campaigns. A brilliant question. And the question at the end as well. So Darren, find my email address. It's not hard to find. And send me your mailing address, and we'll send you an autographed copy of my book, Webanalytics 2.0. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching another exciting episode of Webanalytics TV. Please follow the link in this video or in the blog post in order to submit questions for our next episode, or just go to the website and rate the questions that you like best. We'll see you on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you.